internal resources, things that you have. You've got documentation, maybe out on your internal website. Lots of good documentation there, things that are held in policy manuals. Different departments have instructions. You got your organizational structure, people that answer to each other, people that you can report to, people you can ask information of. You can look over at a department and say, hey, I need resources from this department. Who do I ask? It should be there in the org chart. Audits. We perform audits mainly to look for compliance, make sure things are going the way they should, find deviations from the standard, and possibly find holes. We want to know about risks so we can take care of them. And speaking of risk, we do that risk and business impact assessment. We want to know what threats are out there. We want to know what vulnerabilities we have. If those threats can exploit those vulnerabilities, the likelihood of it happening, giving us risk, and then how we can deal with that risk. If we can mitigate it, if we can assign or transfer it to someone else, get an indemnification, or if it's at an acceptable level that we can just assume the risk. We architect our security. We don't just go out and say, hey, that looks like a good idea. Let's put it into our network. Well, you have a whole lot of different things that look like good ideas. You can get a whole lot of overlap. Overlap isn't necessarily bad, but when you got overlap on top of overlap on top of overlap, you're paying money without achieving anything significantly greater. We want well-rounded protection. We architect to be able to implement security in a reasoned manner, in a cost-effective manner, so it works synergistically. Our security should be holistic. It shouldn't be one piece here, one piece there. It's one whole item. Our personnel, good people do good things. They provide us resources. They have skills. They work hard. We make sure we have good people. We do a background check when they're hired, drug screen, credit checks, education checks. We want to make sure that they are good. They're quality employees. We do routine checks during the time of their employment. And even at post-employment, we have that exit interview. We want to make sure our people are good. We train them as well to make sure they have ongoing skills. And I know I dropped to the bottom here on this slide, knowledge, skills, and abilities. But our personnel need to be trained. They need to know what they're doing. And remember, these are people that are probably going to be with us for a while. If we can raise their skills, give them new skills, they can do things for us instead of hiring someone new or contracting out at a high fee. Now, contracting out's great when you only need something done once. When you need something done day in, day out for the next 5 years, contracting's expensive. You want that skill set internally. Train your people for ongoing skills. We want compliance enforcement. We audit for compliance. ISACA loves compliance. We want to make sure that we know it's happening and it's happened the way that's expected. No surprises. If it's a deviation from standard, it's not good. Any deviation should be handled. We want to mitigate risks from that. And speaking of risks, we're back to that threat and vulnerability analysis. We want to know the threats. We want to know our vulnerabilities, likelihood of that threat exploiting the vulnerability, which gives us our risk. And at the top, we have that risk and business impact assessment, how we're going to deal with the risk. We want to, and we're going to deal with it through those controls and countermeasures at the bottom left of your screen. We want to implement good controls, safeguards, which will keep it from happening, affecting the ARO, the annual rate of occurrence. We want good countermeasures that reduce the damages when it does happen. Because sometimes you can't avoid something happening. When it does happen, it doesn't have to be catastrophic. It can be very reasoned. It can be very reasonable. It's something you can handle. And countermeasures reduce the exposure factor, the amount of damage from a single loss. So the SLE is reduced because the exposure factor is reduced. And finally, resource dependency analysis. If we have a resource that requires certain other things, if that resource is critical, everything it depends on is also critical, even if they didn't seem to be. You know, making payroll every week is a critical item, very critical. Is purchasing critical? Maybe not. But how about having pens on hand? You don't have a pen for someone to sign the check. No one gets to cash the check. So purchasing to make sure you have pens on hand, as silly as that sounds, is a critical item. So something that may not seem critical on its face becomes critical because a critical thing requires it.